As a retired construction foreman, I thought I had built a strong foundation for my family, a home where love and respect were the cornerstones. But when I overheard my daughter and son-in-law calling me a burden behind my back, planning to force me into a care home, that foundation crumbled beneath my feet. That's when I knew I had to take matters into my own hands, to set a trap that would expose their true colors and secure my own future. With the help of a trusted lawyer, I transferred my assets into an ironclad trust, leaving them with nothing but the consequences of their own greed. And when they came knocking on my door, demanding that I sign over control, I was ready to confront them with the truth of their betrayal. This is the story of how I fought back against the vultures circling my nest and found the strength to rebuild my life on my own terms. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. The sun was just starting to peek through the curtains of my bedroom when I heard the sound of voices drifting up from the kitchen. I glanced at the clock on my nightstand, frowning slightly. 6:30 a.m. Who could be up at this hour having a conversation in my own house? I swung my legs over the side of the bed, wincing as my joints creaked and popped in protest. 65 years of hard labor had left their mark on my body, but I refused to let age slow me down. I had always prided myself on my strength and resilience, on my ability to push through any challenge that life threw my way. I shuffled down the hallway, my slippers whispering against the hardwood floors. As I approached the kitchen, the voices grew clearer, sharper. It was my daughter, Melissa, and her husband, Tom. And from the sound of it, they were having a heated discussion. "I'm telling you, it's time," Tom was saying, his voice tight with frustration. "He's becoming a liability, Mel. We can't keep putting our lives on hold to take care of him." I felt a chill run down my spine, a sense of dread settling in the pit of my stomach. They were talking about me, about the man who had raised and provided for them, who had given them everything he had. "I know, Tom," Melissa replied, her tone weary. "But what can we do? He's my father. I can't just abandon him." Tom scoffed, and I could picture the look of contempt on his face. "Abandon him? Mel, we're talking about putting him in a home, not throwing him out on the street. It's for his own good, and for ours. We can't keep living like this, with him constantly underfoot, demanding our attention and our resources." I felt like I had been punched in the gut, the air leaving my lungs in a rush. My own daughter, the child I had loved and nurtured, was talking about me like I was a burden, an inconvenience to be dealt with. "But what about the money, Tom?" Melissa asked, her voice tinged with worry. "Dad's assets, the house, the investments. How do we make sure we don't lose out on what's rightfully ours?" I leaned against the wall, my heart pounding in my chest. So that was it. They weren't just worried about my well-being, about my ability to take care of myself. They were worried about their inheritance, about the money they thought they were entitled to. "Leave that to me," Tom said, his voice confident. "I've been doing some research, talking to some people. There are ways to make sure we come out on top, Mel. Ways to make sure your father's assets end up where they belong." I felt a surge of anger rising in my chest, a hot, bitter rage that threatened to consume me. How dare they, these two vultures, these parasites who had fed off my generosity for years, now conspire to steal what was rightfully mine? I stepped into the kitchen, my eyes blazing with fury. Melissa and Tom looked up, their faces draining of color as they saw the expression on my face. "Dad," Melissa stammered, her eyes wide with shock. "We didn't know you were awake. We were just—" "I heard everything," I said, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. "Every word of your little scheme, your plan to put me away and take what's mine." Tom stepped forward, his hands held up in a placating gesture. "Now, James, let's not get carried away. We were just discussing options, trying to figure out what's best for everyone involved. I barked out a harsh laugh, shaking my head in disbelief. Best for everyone involved? You mean best for you, don't you, Tom? Best for your bank account and your lifestyle, not for the man who's given you everything you have. Melissa's eyes filled with tears, her lower lip trembling. Dad, please, we never meant to hurt you. We're just worried about you, about your health and your future. I stared at her, my heart breaking in my chest. How had it come to this? To my own flesh and blood, treating me like a burden to be disposed of, a problem to be solved. But even as the pain threatened to overwhelm me, I felt a new emotion rising up to take its place. A cold, hard resolve, a determination to fight back against the vultures circling my nest. Well, you don't need to worry about me anymore, I said, my voice steady and calm. Because I'm taking matters into my own hands. And when I'm done, you'll be the ones left with nothing but the consequences of your own greed and betrayal. I turned on my heel and walked out of the kitchen, leaving my stunned and speechless Dildren behind. I had work to do, a plan to set in motion, and heaven help anyone who tried to stand in my way. The next few days passed in a blur of activity and purpose. I threw myself into the task of securing my assets, of putting my affairs in order and protecting myself from the vultures who called themselves my family. I started by making an appointment with my lawyer, Frank Jameson, a man I had known and trusted for over 3 decades. He had been by my side through every major decision of my adult life, from the founding of my construction business to the settling of my wife's estate. If anyone could help me navigate this new and treacherous terrain, it was Frank. I walked into his office with a sense of determination, my shoulders squared and my head held high. Frank looked up from his desk as I entered, his eyebrows raising slightly at the expression on my face. "James," he said, standing up to shake my hand. "What brings you in today? You look like a man on a mission." I took a deep breath, my throat tight with emotion. "I am, Frank. I'm here to make some changes to my estate plan, to put some safeguards in place. I've recently discovered that my own family, my daughter, and her husband have been plotting against me." Frank's face softened with concern, his eyes searching mine. "Plotting against you? What do you mean, James?" I told him everything, from the overheard conversation in the kitchen to the cold, calculating look in Tom's eyes as he discussed ways to secure my assets for himself. I held nothing back, laying bare the pain and the betrayal that had driven me to this point. Frank listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. When I had finished, he leaned back in his chair, his expression grave. "James, I'm so sorry you're going through this," he said, his voice filled with sympathy. "It's a terrible thing to be betrayed by those you love and trust the most. But you're doing the right thing, taking steps to protect yourself and your legacy." He pulled out a pad of paper and a pen, his mind already working on the problem at hand. "Here's what I suggest. We set up a trust, an irrevocable one, and transfer all of your assets into it. That way, they'll be protected from any attempts by your family to gain control or access." I nodded, a sense of relief washing over me. "That sounds perfect, Frank. I want to make sure that my money and my property go where I intend them to, not into the hands of those who would use them for their own selfish ends." Frank smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "I understand completely, James, and I promise you, I'll do everything in my power to make sure that happens. No one will be able to touch your assets without your explicit consent and direction." We spent the next hour going over the details of the trust, discussing the terms and conditions that would govern management and distribution. Frank explained everything in clear, concise language, making sure I understood every aspect of the arrangement. By the time I left his office, I felt a sense of peace and security that I hadn't known in years. I had taken the first step towards reclaiming my life, towards building a future that was truly my own. But even as I savored this small victory, I knew that the hardest part was yet to come. I had to confront Melissa and Tom, to look them in the eye and tell them the truth of what I had done. I had to watch the shock and the anger play out across their faces, the realization that their carefully laid plans had come to nothing. I steeled myself for the confrontation, knowing that it would test every ounce of my strength and resolve. But I also knew that I had no choice, that I couldn't continue to live a lie, to pretend that everything was fine when my own family was plotting against me. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of grim determination, I made my way back to the house that had once been my sanctuary, my refuge from the world. Now, it felt like a battleground, a place where the lines had been drawn and the stakes were higher than ever before. As I walked through the front door, I could hear Melissa and Tom's voices coming from the living room, their tone hushed and urgent. They were planning something, I could tell, some new scheme to secure their own interests at my expense. But this time, I was ready for them. This time, I had the upper hand, the element of surprise on my side. And I was determined to use it to full effect, to show them once and for all that I was not a man to be trifled with, a pawn to be pushed around on their chessboard of greed and deceit. I walked into the room, my head held high and my eyes blazing with righteous anger. Melissa and Tom looked up, their faces registering shock and confusion at the sight of me. "Dad," Melissa said, her voice faltering slightly, "we weren't expecting you home so soon. Is everything okay?" I stared at her, my heart breaking all over again at the false concern in her eyes, the calculated warmth in her smile. How had I been so blind, so naive, to believe in the love and the loyalty of a dild who could betray me so easily? "No, Melissa," I said, my voice steady and calm. "Everything is not okay. In fact, things are about to change around here, in ways you can't even begin to imagine." I watched as the color drained from their faces, as the realization dawned in their eyes. They knew that I knew, that the jig was up and the game was over. And as I prepared to deliver the final blow, to tell them the truth of what I had done, and what it meant for their future, I felt a sense of power and purpose that I had never known before. A fierce, unyielding determination to protect what was mine, and to build a life that was truly worth living. For I was James Walker, a man who had fought and scraped and sacrificed for everything he had. And I would be damned if I let anyone, even my own flesh and blood, take that away from me without a fight. The silence in the room was deafening, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Melissa and Tom stared at me, their faces a mix of shock and disbelief, as if they couldn't quite process the words that had just left my mouth. "What do you mean? Things are about to change?" Melissa asked, her voice trembling slightly. "What have you done, Dad?" I smiled, a cold, humorless thing that felt foreign on my face. "What have I done? I've taken control of my own life, Melissa. I've made sure that my assets, my legacy, will be protected from those who would seek to exploit and manipulate me." Tom stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "Now, hold on just a minute, James. You can't just go around making unilateral decisions like this. We're family. We have a right to be involved in your affairs." I laughed, a harsh, bitter sound that echoed off the walls. "Family? Is that what you call it, Tom, when you're plotting behind my back to put me in a home and steal my money? Is that what family does to each other?" Melissa's eyes widened, her mouth falling open in shock. "Dad, no, it's not like that. We were just trying to do what's best for you, to make sure you're taken care of." I shook my head, my heart hardening with each passing moment. "Don't lie to me, Melissa. I heard you, both of you, talking about how I'm a burden, a liability. How you can't wait to get your hands on my assets and live the life you think you deserve. Tom's face twisted with rage, his fists clenching at his sides. Now you listen to me, old man. You don't know what you're talking about. We've given up everything to take care of you, to make sure you're comfortable in your old age. And this is how you repay us? By cutting us out of your life, your money? I stood my ground, my eyes never leaving his. I'm not cutting you out of anything, Tom. I'm simply protecting what's mine, what I've worked my whole life to build. And if that means putting it in a trust, where you and your greedy little hands can't touch it, then so be it. Melissa started to cry, her shoulders shaking with sobs. Dad, please, don't do this. We love you. We want what's best for you. I felt a flicker of pain in my chest, a twinge of the old love and loyalty that had once bound us together, but I pushed it down, steeling myself against the manipulation and the crocodile tears. If you really loved me, Melissa, you wouldn't be trying to steal from me. You wouldn't be treating me like a burden to be disposed of, a problem to be solved. You would be supporting me, respecting me, honoring the sacrifices I've made for this family. Tom's face was a mask of fury, his eyes blazing with hatred. You're making a big mistake, James. You think you're so smart, so clever, with your little trust in your fancy lawyer. But you don't know who you're dealing with. I'll find a way to get what's mine, one way or another. I smiled again, a smile of pure, unadulterated triumph. Good luck with that, Tom, because as of this morning, everything I own, every penny I've ever earned, is locked up tighter than Fort Knox. And the only way you'll ever see a dime of it is if I decide to give it to you, which, at the moment, seems about as likely as hell freezing over. Melissa's sobs turned to wails, her face crumpling with despair. Dad, no. Please, don't do this. We need you. We love you. I shook my head, my resolve unwavering. You need my money, Melissa. You love what I can do for you, what I can provide. But you don't love me. Not really. Not in the way that counts. I turned to leave, my heart heavy, but my steps sure. I had said what needed to be said, done what needed to be done. And now, it was time to start building a new life, a life that was truly my own. But as I reached the door, Tom's voice stopped me in my tracks. This isn't over, James. You'll regret this. I promise you. You'll come crawling back to us, begging for forgiveness and help. And when you do, we'll be the ones calling the shots. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. And then, slowly, I turned back to face them, my eyes glinting with a fierce, unyielding determination. No, Tom, I won't. Because I'm done being your puppet, your pawn. I'm done letting you pull my strings and manipulate my emotions. From now on, I'm the one in control. And if you can't accept that, if you can't find a way to be a part of my life on my terms, then you're no longer welcome in it. And with that, I walked out the door, my head held high and my heart finally free. I knew that the road ahead would be difficult, that there would be challenges and obstacles to overcome. But I also knew that I had the strength and the courage to face them head on, to build a new life that was truly worth living. For I was James Walker, a man who had spent his whole life building things that last. And now, it was time to build something new. Something that would stand the test of time and the storms of life. A legacy of my own making. A future that was mine and mine alone. And heaven help anyone who tried to stand in my way. The weeks that followed were a time of great change and upheaval in my life. I threw myself into the task of rebuilding, of creating a new existence that was truly my own. It was a daunting challenge, a task that required all of my strength and determination. But I was ready for it, ready to forge a new path and leave the past behind. I started by selling the house, the one that held so many memories of my life with my beloved wife, Sarah. It was a bittersweet moment, saying goodbye to the place that had been my home for so many years. But I knew that it was time to move on, to start fresh in a new place, where the ghosts of the past couldn't haunt me. I found a small apartment in a quiet neighborhood. A place that was just big enough for me and my few possessions. It wasn't much, but it was mine. A space that I could call my own, and shape to my own liking. I also began to reach out to old friends and colleagues. People who had known me before I became a father and a husband. Before my life had been consumed by the needs and demands of others. It was a revelation. Rediscovering the parts of myself that had been buried for so long. The interests and passions that had once defined me. I joined a woodworking club, something I had always wanted to do but never found the time for. I spent long hours in the workshop, crafting beautiful pieces of furniture and art, losing myself in the satisfying rhythm of sawing and sanding and staining. I also started volunteering at a local community center, teaching carpentry skills to underprivileged youth. It was a way to give back, to share the knowledge and experience that I had accumulated over a lifetime of hard work. And it was a joy, seeing the light of understanding dawn in their eyes. Watching them discover the pride and satisfaction of creating something with their own hands. But even as I threw myself into these new pursuits, even as I began to build a life that was truly my own, I couldn't escape the shadow of my past. The pain and betrayal that still haunted my dreams. Melissa and Tom had not taken my decision lying down, had not accepted the new reality of our relationship with grace or understanding. They had fought me every step of the way, using every trick and manipulation in their arsenal to try and regain control over my life and my assets. They had called me names, accused me of being selfish and ungraceful, of turning my back on the family that had always been there for me. They had even tried to have me declared mentally incompetent, to use the legal system to force me back under their thumb. But I had stood firm, had weathered the storm of their anger and their lies with a strength and resilience that surprised even me. And in the end, they had been forced to accept the truth, to confront the reality of their own greed and duplicity. It had been a painful process, a journey that had tested me in ways I had never been tested before. But it had also been a revelation, a chance to finally see the truth of who I was and what I was capable of. And now, as I sat in my little apartment, surrounded by the fruits of my own labor and the evidence of my own worth, I felt a sense of peace and contentment that I had never known before. I had built something new, something that was truly mine. And I knew that, no matter what challenges lay ahead, I had the strength and the courage to face them head on. But even as I savored this hard-won victory, even as I began to imagine a future that was bright and full of promise, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still missing, that there was one more piece of unfinished business that I needed to attend to. And then, one day, it hit me like a bolt of lightning. Melissa, my daughter, the dild I had raised and loved with all my heart. I had cut her out of my life, had severed all ties and communication in the wake of her betrayal. But was that really the answer? Was that the legacy I wanted to leave behind? I thought of Sarah, my beloved wife, the woman who had been my rock and my guiding light for so many years. She had always believed in the power of forgiveness, in the importance of family, and the unbreakable bonds of love. What would she have wanted me to do? What would she have said in the face of such pain and heartbreak? I knew the answer, even before I allowed myself to fully form the question. She would have wanted me to try, to reach out one last time and offer the hand of reconciliation and understanding. Not for Melissa's sake, but for my own. For the sake of my own soul, my own chance at peace and closure. And so, with a heavy heart and a sense of trepidation, I picked up the phone and dialed her number, my fingers trembling slightly as I punched in the digits that I had once known by heart. She answered on the third ring, her voice guarded and wary. "Dad, what do you want?" I took a deep breath, my throat tight with emotion. "I want to talk, Melissa." I want to try and find a way forward. A way to heal all the wounds that we've both suffered. Not for your sake, but for mine. For the sake of the love that we once shared. The bond that I hope isn't truly broken. There was a long pause, a silence that seemed to stretch out into eternity. And then, finally, a small, hesitant voice. "Okay, Dad. Let's talk." And as I sat there, the phone pressed to my ear and my heart full of hope and fear, I knew that I had taken the first step on a new journey, a path that would test me in ways I had never been tested before. But I also knew that I was ready for it. Ready to face whatever lay ahead with the strength and the courage that had always been my birthright. For I was James Walker, a builder of things that last. And I would not rest until I had built a bridge back to my daughter, back to the family that had once been the center of my world. It would be a long and difficult road, a journey fraught with pain and uncertainty. But it was a journey that I knew I had to take, a chance that I had to seize with both hands. For in the end, that was what life was all about. Not the money, or the status, or the trappings of success, but the love and the connection that we shared with the people who mattered most. The bonds of family and friendship that sustained us through the darkest of times and lifted us up to the brightest of HGTs. And as long as I had that, as long as I had the chance to build something new and beautiful out of the ashes of the past, then I knew that I could face anything that life might throw my way. With a smile on my face and a song in my heart, I began to plan my next move, my next step on the long and winding road to redemption and renewal. For I was James Walker, a builder of dreams and a seeker of truth. And I would not rest until I had found what I was looking for, until I had built a life that was truly worth living. No matter how long it took, no matter how hard I had to fight, I would never give up, never surrender, for that was the true measure of a man, the only legacy that really mattered in the end. And it was a legacy that I intended to build, one brick at a time, until the very last breath left my body and the very last beat of my heart. The meeting with Melissa was a turning point, a chance to finally lay the past to rest and begin the long and difficult process of rebuilding our relationship. We met at a small cafe downtown, a neutral ground where we could talk openly and honestly, without the baggage of our shared history weighing us down. She looked different than I remembered, older and more worn, as if the years of anger and resentment had taken their toll. But there was still a spark of the old Melissa there, a glimmer of the bright and loving Dild I had once known. We talked for hours, pouring out our hearts and our fears, our hopes and our regrets. We spoke of the past, of the mistakes we had both made and the hurts we had both suffered. And we spoke of the future, of the possibility of finding a new way forward, a path that would allow us to heal all and grow together. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when the old wounds threatened to reopen, when the anger and the pain bubbled up to the surface once more. But we pushed through it, determined to find a way to forgive and to move on. And slowly but surely, we began to make progress, to find common ground and understanding where there had once been only division and strife. We laughed and we cried, we reminisced and we dreamed. We took tentative steps towards a new and brighter future. In the weeks and months that followed, Melissa and I continued to work on our relationship, to build the trust and the love that had once been the foundation of our family. It was a slow and halting process, full of setbacks and challenges. But we persevered, driven by the knowledge that we had been given a second chance, a rare opportunity to make things right. Tom, however, was another story. He had always been a prideful and stubborn man, quick to anger and slow to forgive. And the revelation of his true nature, of the depths of his greed and deceit, had only hardened his heart further. He refused to accept the new reality of our family dynamic, refused to acknowledge the hurt and the damage he had caused. Instead, he lashed out with bitterness and rage, blaming everyone but himself for the mess he had made of his life. I tried to reach out to him, to offer the same hand of reconciliation and understanding that I had extended to Melissa, but he rejected it with scorn and contempt, too proud and too angry to see the truth of his own actions. And so, with a heavy heart, I was forced to let him go, to accept that there were some wounds that even time and love could not heal all. It was a painful decision, a final severing of a bond that had once been so strong. But I knew that it was necessary, that I could not continue to pour my energy and my hope into a man who refused to change. Instead, I focused on the things that truly mattered, on the relationships and the pursuits that brought me joy and fulfillment. I continued to volunteer at the community center, sharing my skills and my knowledge with a new generation of builders and dreamers. I deepened my friendships with the people who had stood by me through the darkest of times, the ones who had seen the best in me, even when I couldn't see it myself. And I continued to work on my own personal growth, to challenge myself and push beyond my comfort zone in ways that I never had before. It was a time of great change and transformation, a period of my life that was both exhilarating and terrifying in equal measure. But through it all, I held fast to the lessons I had learned, to the truths that had been forged in the fires of adversity and pain. I learned that true strength comes not from the ability to control others, but from the courage to face our own fears and weaknesses head-on. I learned that forgiveness is a choice, a daily practice that requires patience and compassion, both for ourselves and for those who have hurt us. And I learned that the greatest legacy we can leave behind is not the wealth or the status we accumulate, but the love and the wisdom we share with those who come after us. The lessons and the values that we pass down to the next generation, the seeds of hope and resilience that we plant in the hearts of those we touch. These were the things that truly mattered, the only currency that had any real value in the end. And as I looked back on my life, on the long and winding road that had brought me to this moment, I knew that I had been richly blessed, that I had been given a rare and precious gift. The gift of a second chance, a new beginning that had allowed me to heal all the wounds of the past and build a brighter future for myself and for those I loved. The gift of a family that had been broken but not destroyed, a bond that had been tested but not severed, and the gift of my own strength and resilience, the unshakable knowledge that I had faced the darkest of storms and emerged stronger and wiser for the journey. As I sat on the porch of my little apartment, watching the sun set over the city that had been my home for so long, I felt a sense of peace and gratitude wash over me, a deep and abiding joy that filled every corner of my being. For I knew that I'd lived a life that mattered, that I'd made a difference in the world and in the hearts of those I held most dear. I knew that I had faced my demons and emerged victorious, that I had built something beautiful and lasting out of the ashes of my past. And I knew that, no matter what the future might bring, I would always have this moment, this perfect, shining example of what it meant to be alive, to be human, to be part of something greater than myself. For I was James Walker, a builder, a father, a friend, a man who had learned to love and to let go, to fight for what mattered, and to find the courage to start anew. And as long as I had breath in my body and fire in my soul, I would continue to live by those principles, to share them with all those whose lives I touched. For that was my legacy, my gift to the world. And it was a gift that I would cherish and protect with every fiber of my being until the very end of my days. It's been 5 years since that fateful meeting with Melissa. 5 years since I made the decision to forgive and to heal all, to choose love over anger and hope over despair. And as I sit here in the warm glow of a summer evening, surrounded by the laughter and the joy of my family and friends, I can't help but feel a deep sense of gratitude and wonder for the incredible journey that has been my life. Oh, it hasn't always been easy. There have been plenty of challenges and setbacks along the way. Plenty of moments when the old doubts and fears threatened to creep back in. But through it all, I have held fast to the lessons I learned in those darkest of days, to the truths that were forged in the fire of adversity and pain. I have learned that family is not just a matter of blood and biology, but a choice we make every day to love and support one another, no matter what life may throw our way. I have learned that forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, but a source of great strength and courage, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. And I have learned that the true measure of a life well lived is not the accolades or the achievements we accumulate, but the love and the wisdom we share with those who come after us, the legacy we leave behind, the seeds of hope and compassion we plant in the hearts of all those we touch. These are the things that matter most, the only currency that has any real value in the end. And as I look around at the faces of those I hold most dear, at Melissa and her new husband, at the grandchildren who light up my world with their laughter and their love, I know that I have been richly blessed, that I have been given a rare and precious gift. The gift of a second chance, a new beginning, that has allowed me to build something beautiful and lasting out of the ashes of my past. The gift of a family that has been held and strengthened by the power of forgiveness and grace. And the gift of my own wisdom and resilience, the unshakable knowledge that I have the strength to face whatever challenges may lie ahead, to weather any storm and emerge stronger and wiser for the journey. As the sun begins to set on another perfect day, as the fireflies dance and the crickets sing their evening song, I close my eyes and offer up a silent prayer of thanks for all that I have been given, for all that I have been able to give in return. For I am James Walker, a builder, a father, a friend, a man who has lived and loved with all his heart, who has fought the good fight and emerged victorious on the other side. And as long as there is breath in my body and love in my soul, I will continue to do just that. To live each day with purpose and passion, with gratitude and grace. For that is the only way to truly live. The only way to leave a mark on this world that will endure long after we are gone. And it is a mark that I am proud to leave, a legacy of love and wisdom that will shine like a beacon through the ages, guiding all those who follow in my footsteps towards a broader and more beautiful future. So let us go forth with courage and conviction, with open hearts and open minds. Let us face the challenges and the joys of this life with the strength and the resilience of those who have gone before us. And let us never, ever forget the power of love to heal all and to transform, to lift us up and to set us free. For that is the greatest lesson of all, the one that I will carry with me until the very end of my days. And it is a lesson that I leave to you, my beloved family, as the most precious gift I have to give. Cherish it always, and let it be your guiding light through all the days of your lives. For it is the light of love, and it will never, ever fade away. If you found James's story of forgiveness, wisdom, and the unbreakable bonds of family inspiring, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more uplifting tales of everyday heroes making a difference in the world. And don't forget to share your own experiences and reflections in the comments below. We all have a story to tell, a lesson to learn, a legacy to leave. By sharing our journeys and our truths, we inspire and uplift each other, and we create a world that is a little broader, a little more beautiful, a little more full of hope and possibility. So keep shining your light, my friends. Keep loving and forgiving, keep building and dreaming, keep fighting for what matters and letting go of what doesn't. The world needs more heroes like James Walker, more everyday champions of compassion and grace. And together we can build a future that is worthy of our highest aspirations, our deepest dreams. One story at a time, one act of love at a time. The journey begins anew, with each and every one of us. So let us go forth with courage and conviction, with the strength and the wisdom of those who have gone before us. For the best is yet to come, and the light of love will guide us every step of the way.